Hello, good morning, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this beautiful Saturday morning, our first program in June. This is Sunrise, and I am Alero Edu.
Good morning and welcome to the show. I'm Neil Tagwe. And as they say, we've not said it on Sunrise this month.
Please
Happy
don't.
New Month.
Oh, please don't.
Oh, come on. You are the one that normally says. Okay. Thank you for joining us. In fact, I always like to talk about the fact that it's always a beautiful Saturday morning. When it rains.
So it was a beautiful every day, like someone described it. I was watching a video on YouTube yesterday, and someone said, every morning when I wake up, I thank God because He killed me last night and resurrected me this morning. Then I realized, yeah, when you sleep, you're actually dead. You could well be dead.
Yeah, true. True.
So every morning, not only on Saturday morning, when you wake up, thank you, Lord.
But besides that, why I say Saturdays are always beautiful, besides the fact that I know that our viewers are relaxed and waiting for us to come into their homes. Thank you so much for that. But it's also the fact that the atmosphere itself tends to be calmer.
Relax.
Yeah, it's like Saturdays were just made for
Relax.
for this relaxed, fun things. And then Sunday has this soothing effect.
And then Monday, the
Monday has everyone just goes
the rush rate begins again.
begins again. But it's just good, and it's good to know that you're out there. The week has been very hectic, a lot of activity, a lot of things, even in the midst of the pandemic.
Exactly, and some of them
A lot of
very
things.
sad.
Very sad, some very annoying, but we'll get to all of that. But in the course of the week, there were all manner of easings on the lockdowns across the globe. Here in Nigeria, the worship centers are to open in phases
or something.
Okay, Lagos says 21st for the churches, 19th for the mosque, but then the rules.
Not more than 50 people?
No, 40% of the capacity of the structure.
Of the church, yes.
And no matter how large your structure is, not more than 500. The rules, that's where my concern is.
And they must all wear masks.
Everyone must wear masks, no hugging, no touching, no kissing. Someone added that one. No hugging, no touching, no food.
No communion if it's going to come from a bowl.
Whatever one. No communion, no food whatsoever. But it's about sticking to the rules, because the authorities have said that if you don't stick to the rules, well, they'll come back, reinforce the lockdowns again. But abiding by the rules. The truth is this. Let's stay safe. Hey, 80% of those who contract this virus would be cured, will be healed somehow. They will recover. Yeah, that's the word. They'll recover. But while we're looking to see that they recover, please, let's stay safe. There are rules that are meant to guide all of us. Spacing, social distancing, physical distancing, whatever you want to call it. Washing your hands, wearing your mask, and
like we've always said, our lives have changed forever. Have you seen the protocols for event centers, and parties and all that? It's like, well then, that's the end of showing off at parties.
Is it really?
It is.
You can actually show off. It's just that you have to do it from a distance.
Yeah, right. Who wants to do it from a distance? Well, if I have a Rolls Royce, I want the whole world to see it, for God's sake. And if I've got diamonds on, I want the whole world to see it.
But they can't see it from you just don't have to come too close for them to see it.
Yeah, I mean, at parties, you can't sit more than 5 people on a table.
Yes.
And you have to have your temperature checked before you have access. There must be sanitizers on the tables. I mean, the whole thing is, come on, if I have to go through all this, I might as well just sit in my house.
No, but Lera, if you're wearing your diamonds, it's more appreciated from a distance. If I come too close, I might not see the glittering and all of that.
Right.
So let's look at things. Let's just see the cup as half empty, but let's see it as half full. But above all is the enablement to drink of that cup. So let's stay alive to be able to drink of that cup that is half
Whether it is half full or full. Just stay alive, and for crying out loud, stay safe. Coronavirus is real, and this is to those who still believe that there is nothing like coronavirus. coronavirus is real and it is killing people all over the world, including Nigeria.
Well, talking about all over the world, back here, our friends are still doing this. They're still going about their ways of doing it. The drivers on the roads, they're still crazy, still driving reckless, still not obeying traffic rules, overloading. They say it carries 40, 60% of capacity. They are still overloading. And right now, I'm not even going to talk to the drivers. Let me talk to you, who's the passenger, who is commuting from one point to the other. You know the rules. Why won't you help to enforce the rules in that vehicle? Must you enter that vehicle? There are other people who are willing to stay by the rules.
Well, the conductor isn't going to allow that.
But you know what they do? They will get to the car.
He's going to carry enough people and then stand and stick his ass out, with the door open. But I know that there is a rule that says that you cannot drive
even before the pandemic,
a vehicle
with the door open. Yeah.
Nobody's enforcing it. 100 Naira will do it when the law enforcement
They move from
comes
here.
around.
They move from the bus station, and as they're moving along the road, with the right capacity, 40% or 60%, as the case may be. And then when they leave the bus station along the road, they stop
add more
and start adding. So someone I know actually told the driver and the conductor on the bus, says, "You're not carrying more than this."
Yeah.
They're like, if you don't want to get down, says, "I am not getting down."
And you're not
carrying more than this. Now, fortunately for him, they didn't go violent on him, which is good, and I appreciate the fact that he stood his ground. And they were, as much as they were grumbling, angry, he carried that way until they got to where he came down. He said as he came down, just as he turned to walk away, he looked.
That.
Oh, but we're led into the bus, and it was like, come on.
We can't learn.
No, we can learn. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way. But
okay.
Let's see what we have lined up on the menu today.
Okay. Yesterday was World Environment Day, so we're going to be looking at how we're going to engage the people to appreciate our environment more.
Then, ending domestic and sexual violence.
That was trending all week.
Still trending.
Flutterwave services, what are those about?
Now we'll look at SMEs to the rescue, revamping the Nigerian economy. How can the SMEs help?
And as is usual on Sunrise, we shall close with the Artist of the Week segment, and we have a very interesting lady who will be joining us later.
Yes, indeed.
Make sure you stay with us till the end of the program.
So make yourself comfortable. Our Twitter handles are on the screen. Do share, be part of the conversation. Tweet at us, send us a mail, and please, as you're sending it, keep it civil so that we can share with the rest of the world. And if you want to send a question and you don't send it in on time, we might not be able to share with the guest before they leave the studio. But we'll be back shortly. Go ahead. Was already my own. Thank you for staying with us. We get into the show proper, the conversations. Now, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, it's that time of the year we celebrate the World Environment Day. It's a day set aside to raise awareness and action for the protection of the environment. That was yesterday, the 5th of June every year. Now, the theme for this year is centered around biodiversity, protecting biodiversity. All manner of things. Last week when we had this conversation, someone was talking about things that affect the environment. He said anthropogenic activities, the activities of man and animals, basically the topography and all of that affect the way the environment turns out. So how much of engagement, how engaged are the people? I was part of a webinar yesterday, and a poll was put out there. How involved are Africans when it comes to the question of the environment? A poll was done. 50%, over 50% said Africans are more concerned about survival than about the environment. 40% said no, they are really interested in the environment. But let's see how we'll go today, getting all of this questions answered. Joining us via from outside of the studio is Dr. Nemo Bassey, an environmental activist, who joins us via Zoom. Dr. Bassey? Thank you there. Also here in the studio, we have Oluwasegun Benson, who's the CEO of Force Guard. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let me start out with you here before we go to Dr. Benson.
Okay.
What do you think about the question of biodiversity in our environmental space? Would you say we've even bothered to protect our biodiversity?
Well, like you see, everything in Nigeria has to do with the way we structure, our environment. The way we structure how we respond to the environment from the government angle. So that has affected a lot of response that we should be giving if certain structure was in place, from time. We probably wouldn't the responses and the proper how I'm trying to look for this word, the proper response mechanism would have been in place. Therefore, we won't have underlining what do you call it? We would have done a lot of structure whereby we've taken care of so many things in the environment, and rather than.
But then there are those who ask, why do we? Because one of the things we're hoping to do is now, how do we engage people? How do we get the people more engaged? Do we have to wait for government response to even be engaged about protecting our environment?
Yeah, you see, like I said, structure. You see, naturally, government cannot do everything.
Government shouldn't do everything.
Yeah, government shouldn't do everything. But then we've come to this. I think it's a Nigerian thing whereby a lot of people just feel the government should do everything, and people ordinarily are not, taking responsibility of owning the environmental space. From your recycling to your environmental habits in your house. So a lot of people just feel government should do everything. I mean, let me just give you an example now. The pandemic, there was a lockdown, everybody, in their homes. A lot of parents would have used that to sort of educate their children on proper waste disposal, in terms of sorting out your waste. Like, Lagos State government came up with sorting out your waste from the house, Now, that's the perfect time to, for parents to engage their kids in the house and say, okay, you know what, we're going to have 3 bins in the house. The plastics will go in this bin, your solid waste here, and your paper waste here. That's, we need to imbibe that culture. From then they start getting interested in the environment. So when you start that from your house, how you live, that's how you're going to transcend when you go outside. Then you start taking care of the environment. You don't throw things where you shouldn't throw them, and So those are the we should have been able to.
Yeah. Let's bring in Dr. Bassey here. Dr. Bassey, the World Environment Day, protecting our biodiversity. You've been one of those who's been canvassing for this for quite a while. But seeing that this is like the focus at this time, do you think it's the right time? Okay, we'll still get back to Dr. Bassey. So, Segun, first of all, one of the things you do is, especially in this pandemic period, you do disinfection and fumigation, all of that, as the case may be. But do you think that human activity, especially in our space, can actually be slowed down to give room to the environment?
Yes, it all boils down to how people respond to, I'll say, the government. A typical example is when the government says, okay, there's going to be lockdown, people should stay at home and all that. If they had, you know, if you respond to government, right, then you can, sorry, let me take that question again, sorry. Sorry, I was a bit...
Do you think human activity
okay.
would ever slow down to
Okay.
give room for the environment to regain itself?
Yeah, well,
in a society,
I'm
sorry, in
okay.
a society which is the way it is,
Yeah.
from what he said
Yeah,
when he
okay.
was opening, where people are basically just thinking about survival. How do you want to tell the woman who lives in the village, who cooks with firewood, not to go and get firewood from the forest to cook her food? That's the only way she knows how to cook. So what are you going to tell such a person about, oh, the environment requires that you stop this habit? So what are you going to tell her to cook with?
True. Yeah, but
that's just one example.
Yeah, okay. But then, like I said, government has a lot of role to play by creating alternatives. You see, sometimes when you restrict certain, when you have certain policies in place, you have to have a palliative, like an option, so that, just like what you said now, you know, as to going to, you know, using wood, government, you know, there's a time government talking about how we should use gases and all of that, you know. And also, for me, it's an individual thing, you know, it's a mindset thing. Okay, put it this way, when the whole pandemic thing, the lockdown, you know, there was lockdown, you can see that we had clearer skies, you know, because of the, you know, people actually obeyed, people stayed at home. The
industries were shut down and all.
Yeah, exactly. You see that even the waters, they had like clearer, you know, the water had settled because the activities on that,
Water surface.
the water surface, you know, activity is less, so
You
the
had
waters
the
are
birds
settled.
chirp.
Okay, water has settled and all of that. Now, the question should be, should there be a pandemic for that to happen? You know, shouldn't people just realize that, you know, checkmating what they do also affect the environment? You see, it's as a result of the structure, what the people from time, if something is wrong, if you get something wrong, it's like a ripple effect.
Okay, we'll go on a quick break, but while we're on that break, we'd like people also think about the fact that in some climes, if you cut down a tree, you could go to jail. You cut down a tree without permission. You trim the flowers in front of your house without permission, you could go to jail. So what Oluwasegun was talking about, structure, could also come in a great deal to help the people get engaged. But we'll look at all of that when we come back from this break. Just stay with us.
It's the 2020 World Environment Day, and according to the United Nations, the theme for this year is biodiversity, because the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic is also causing harm to the ecosystem that supports human life. In Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital and the epicenter of the country's COVID-19 infections, the state's waste management agency hopes to reduce this imbalance through proper disposal of refuse from isolation centers, which is believed will also help to reduce the spread of the disease.
We have dedicated trucks that are servicing our isolation centers and all the hospitals that we're supporting during the COVID-19 period. I can assure the residents of Lagos that all the waste that we take from these isolation centers and treatment centers are not commingled with any other waste. We take them for proper treatment, and we ensure that we're doing so. Just like it was done during the Ebola time, Lagos State have a very good platform to be able to respond, and we're giving feedback to the Ministry of Health to ensure that we're doing what we need to do to support the government at this point in time.
The agency also rolls out its new plans in achieving a cleaner Lagos.
We are rehabilitating our dump site in the state. Over the next 2 to 3 months, we should have a recycling presence in all our 57 LCDA. The government aim is to ensure that at least we have a minimum of 2 recyclers per LCDA, that's 114. So when we do that, we will reduce our landfill impact. The reason why we're sweeping is because people still have the habit of just dumping things as they use it. No matter what you do, be it a wrapper of a sweet, be it a pack of gala that you've used, please think about the environment before you actually dump it on the road. Because at the end of the day, each plastic we have, it takes 450 years for them to decay.
Norma says this can be achieved faster if residents sort out their waste before the refuse collectors arrive.
Thank you for staying with us, and the conversation continues. This time, Dr. Nimo Bassi, an environmental activist, joins us again via Zoom. Dr. Bassi, the question I asked you earlier had to do with the fact that you've been in this business of trying to create awareness and get everyone around you to conform or to align with the issues that have to do with protecting not just biodiversity, but the environment as well. But how would you say it's been in all these years of what you've been doing?
Now you asked me a difficult question. The truth is that the struggle for a clean environment, the fight for environmental justice is a lifelong struggle. And I think by and large, Nigerians are getting a bit more conscious about the environment, especially those who are really badly hit by environmental degradation. We're hearing people making demands for clean environment. Yesterday in the World Environment Day celebration, we heard the governor of Bayelsa State speaking clearly, almost like an activist, asking for a cleanup of the state of the entire region, because we do know that the less clean, the less habitable our environment is, the less healthy we are. Because just like the dirt in the environment affects our health, so it affects the health of all other life forms that make up the biodiversity we're talking about. In fact, our health is dependent on the health of biodiversity, and this is connected to the current pandemic. It could be that there are two ways this could have happened. The jump from animals to humans, or human tampering with the genetic makeup of viruses to make them more virulent. So Nigerians, where we lost it actually is that rather than keeping to the traditional norms of keeping excellent environment where we live in, we kind of handed over the duty to municipal authorities. But again, that is understandable. At community level, is much more small scale. At the municipal level, more people are living together. There are more the industrial waste coming out, medical waste coming out, other specialized waste coming out. So we need authorities who would take the lead in terms of providing waste management and, of course, environmental leadership.
Is government policy helping to preserve this biodiversity that you're talking about?
Governments have a way of drawing up very beautiful policies, but policy alone would not bring about change except they're implemented. When policies are made, you have to make the administrative framework for implementation, the legislative framework for implementation. If they are just policies, and I've seen a lot of policies in the environmental sector in Nigeria. Every year, sometimes they're just there for a long time, then they pick it up and then review it and revise it, and then we'll put it back on the shelf. And of course, generally, governments pay very little attention in terms of revenue allocation for environmental sector. The various ministries of environment in our states are so neglected. And some states, a couple of states, I think, don't even have ministries in charge of the environment. As a nation, we didn't have any ministry in charge of environment until the early 1990s. So government is still on a learning curve, which is rather low in terms of prioritizing the environment and understanding that if the environment is not well, the economy would not be well. We need a healthy workforce. You need people who are happy where they are. Some of the kind of atrocities you see with security agencies against citizens is you can trace it back the quality of places they live in, the quality of the offices they work in, the quality of the cells where they put people who are suspected. All these environmental factors affect the psyche of people and, of course, those running the companies.
Segun, he's talked about in the way what you were talking about, government creating structure. But the climate is not waiting for government structure.
Yeah, well, true.
Climate change is real.
Yes, of
course. It's not waiting for government structure. So how do we, let's begin to look at how do we get the people to even engage with the environment, even in the midst of the climate and the pandemic?
Yeah, well, it's continuous sensitization. Continuous, I mean, you have to keep sensitizing the people. You have to, you know, take it down to, how do you call it, like schools. Like, I was in a seminar once, and I was like, I said to my, in the program, I said, I think schools have to have it in their curriculum where, you know, they actually study climate change. Climate change is broad, you know, so they have to have like a subject, yeah, that's specifics on climate change, because then they will understand. At that time, you need to tell them how how we live affect the climate. I mean, let me just give you a typical example. During this lockdown, we had, I mean, clearer waters, you know, lesser nitrogen oxide in the, from space, you know, a lot of activities that nature actually, you know, it was as if nature thrived in that short period of time. I mean, there was an article I read about from space, how clear the skies were in terms of the nitrogen oxide that's in the air and all that. You understand? So you can see that humans, we are the ones contributing to all this, you know, polluting the environment. However, if we now need to sort of like reorient ourselves, you know, like a reorientation, and it has to be from like the primary schools, you know, from the primary schools, because a lot of people, I'll use Lagos as an example now, a lot of people might not understand that it is their own action that leads to, it is one plastic bottle that you dispose of, you know, incorrectly, that piles to that millions. So they have to imbibe that culture. So no matter the structure, even if Lagos State Waste Management Authority, no matter how, if you get 10,000 trucks, but the people themselves, they are to take the ownership of the environment.
That understanding of the implication of your singular action, what do we need to even begin to get it in? What do we need to do to get adults? You're talking about primary school.
You see,
adults even understand that that singular plastic you drop out there, as you said, is enough to increases the pile out.
Yeah. You see, well, in some countries they have like punitive approach. I mean, you know, I think it's high time in Lagos that we have like a punitive approach for adults, because at this point, how do you tell an adult, just like, I mean, you heard the MD of Loma talking about how even your gala, how you should dispose your gala pack, and once you consume your gala, how you should dispose properly. You know, there has to be some punitive approach. Some, I mean, like, I can talk about Kigali. I went to Kigali because I was thinking, you know, how did we get here in Nigeria? How did we get to the point whereby, you know, people are not conscious of the environment? So I thought it was the result of, oh, we're Africans. You know, that's why we're doing this. So when I went to Kigali, they are Africans. They were not white people there. They were Africans. Yet, you know what surprised me? They would dispose their garbage properly. Whatever bottle of water, anything they drink, they dispose them properly. You understand? So it's
awareness. Because I'm going to say, we are the parents of today. When I was growing up, the only thing we knew about the environment was to keep it clean. Yeah. You swept your environment in the morning, all that kind of stuff. There wasn't too much refuse. There was no plastic bottle or plastic bags or, you know, water bags in those days. So even we didn't know too much about it. So we are now in a position where the world has changed, and we have to educate our children and even our grandchildren. Yeah. So we now have to be educated ourselves, albeit in old age. How much of that is going on? How much are we being taught so that we can teach our children?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think the government needs to do more. in terms of sensitization. It all has, information, sensitization. Even for me, I would say the government should put in place a punitive approach to adults. I mean, how do you teach an adult what to do, what he should have learned like years back? How do you teach them? So there should be like punitive approach to this. Like subtle punishment, community service for, back in the days we had like CHI, the war against indiscipline. If you urinate or something indiscriminately, you're brought to book. But now that is
we
not.
didn't follow through on that.
Yeah, but see, there's a lot of factors that has led us to where we are today. Now, Lagos State is the smallest state in Nigeria, yet the demography, the one with the most, we're like overpopulated. Yeah, we're overpopulated. Now, it's how do you checkmate, how do you control such a size of people in a small space? No, let's face it, how do you do that? So
that's why more discipline is required.
Exactly. Now, the government, they have to have like more drastic measure. I'm sure the governor, recently they did this, they rekitted the LAJEX with, the environmental, I think they're responsible for the environmental enforcement for indiscriminate disposal of waste. Yeah, they need to actually give them that bite power. You understand? You see, like, when Lagos State had this traffic issue, last month came, and, there was some sort of like...
even though that's arguable, but let's
bring
in Dr.
But then they should, I think that they should add more bites to that, to that power, so that they can actually prosecute and just, not go to jail, but let them give them community service. They don't actually sweep the street. Let them pick, give them, okay, before I let you go, you chuck one bottle out of your window, you have to pick 1,000 bottles, and something like that.
Okay, but you drop one bottle, you pick 1,000.
Yeah, you pick 1,000 bottles. Yeah.
Do you think that would help in engaging the people? You drop a bottle out of your car window, you pick 1,000.
I think that sounded quite interesting, but I wouldn't want punitive measures against citizens in terms of environmental issues. There are a lot of structural things that our institutions have to do. There are other ways of getting people to do what they ought to do. One of which is ensuring that producers, industries who make things like gala should use biodegradable materials to package their goods, so that when people use them, these things can degrade easily. They're easier to dispose and take care of. We can also, there are many things being done in other countries. You return a number of bottles, plastic bottles or whatever, then you get a token. People use plastics to pay for school fees for their children. They earn some income by returning those plastic stuff and not just throwing them away. So people can see the value of those things. But moreover, we should just, beyond thinking that the plastic industry must be encouraged to keep on damaging our environment, we can actually, that's why we should make legislation to stop the manufacturing of one-use plastics. All those bags, I get really disgusted. I'm going to buy a loaf of bread, it's already inside a plastic bag, and then the seller is insisting to give me another plastic bag to put that loaf of bread that's already wrapped. I want to buy pineapple, somebody's giving me a plastic bag. For goodness sake, we have to change our attitudes. And that is, we start by stopping. Countries that are less endowed, in quotes, than Nigeria have taken steps right here in Africa to stop the use of single-use plastics. But here we are thinking that if we do that, it will harm industry. So the overbearing pressure of certain industries on government structures actually hinder the change that we need to have quickly.
That question, again, I'll take you back to the question of awareness. Oluwasegun mentioned it. And how many people do you think are aware of the importance of biodiversity to our environment?
I think maybe, except those who live in skyscrapers in big cities like Lagos, they may be removed from biodiversity. A majority of our people in this country live in rural areas, and they understand that their life is intertwined with biodiversity. Take, for example, there are communities who have management principles where they take care of biodiversity. Certain animal species are protected, even where we don't have official protected areas. Certain species are not killed, are not eaten because they have other uses. Biodiversity is not just about food, it's about our culture, it's about religion, it's about, our spiritual balance, it's about a lot of things, about our just enjoying the visual interaction with biodiversity. And a lot of our people are very, very concerned about the quality of the environment they live in. I've seen this in very remote villages where certain things are taken there, and then people know that their life is at risk. People always have hope when so-called progress is coming, but at the end of the day, the good life is living in harmony with the environment. And so very a lot of people who don't have the kind of things we enjoy in cities, we think we enjoy in cities. They can sit out of their homes and look at the moon in the night, tell stories. In the city, we don't even know what night looks like. So the problem is more.
Are you implying there's no hope for the city dwellers?
No, that's not what I'm saying. The city dwellers, it's easier to reach them through television, like we're speaking now. It's better you can reach them by radio, by newspapers. So, but these city dwellers are the ones who are driving the state of environment in the country. They're the ones who are unleashing these kind of activities that have to be halted. Where they want contesting space with biodiversity, and that is why in the short period of the lockdown, wild species took over the spaces that they have been deprived of engaging in.
Yeah, Dr. La, let me stay with you. Is there enough by way of a legal framework that restricts big corporations and companies that will cause them to reduce their carbon print? And I recall a few years ago, there was a factory that was taken to court or so for releasing effluents into just a normal gutter that went through a town.
Thank you for bringing that up. We don't have strict enough regulations to hold polluting corporations accountable. So we need strict liability. You mentioned about factories. I've seen across the coast of West Africa, factories dumping very toxic elements into the ocean. People are seeing our canals, our lagoons, rivers, and the ocean as waste dumps, which is very wrong way to look at those environmental spaces. They say there are cases in the Niger Delta, if you permit me, where companies have dug canals just for discharging waste into the sea. And they've done this for decades on end. They've not stopped it. This is it's things that you can't just imagine, but they're happening on a daily basis. How about gas flaring? We had a decree that was made in 1979, came into effect in 1984, a kind of outlawing gas flaring. But then it gave an allowance. You pay a fine, then you flare the gas. And you had a permit from the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and you can flare the gas. And now the kind of fine is so small that you can pay well in advance and keep on committing the crime. In 2005, a court ruled that gas flaring is illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it's against the human rights of the people. But it's still going on as we speak. So the regulations are there, but enforcement is difficult because of the intricate relationship between those who ought to regulate and those who are committing the pollution.
All right, Dr. Bassey, I'm afraid we'll have to hold our horses at this point. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your thoughts with us. Dr. Nimo Bassey is an environmental activist who's been at it for quite a while, and hopefully someday the message will sink into all. Thank you. Also joining us in the studio was Oluwasegun Benson, who's the CEO of Force Guard, and thank you. We also were supposed to have someone from Green Hub Africa who was organizing a webinar to teach about this World Environment Day and what we ought to do about the environment. Hopefully we'll get them in the course of our program. But that's it on the segment. So as we're back in a moment for another interesting segment, please stay with us.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now we're going to be looking at something that has reached worrisome proportions in Nigeria. If you recall, in the course of this week, stories were trending about women who had suffered some kind of domestic and sexual violence. There seems to be a surge, and that was what made the rounds in the course of the week. And well-meaning Nigerians, as well as government, have raised their voices over this disheartening issue, and even the National Assembly had to take a look at this matter in the course of the week. So to discuss this worrying topic with us this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome two people who will be joining us from our studio in Abuja. Funmi Ajare, who is the COO of Helpline Foundation for the Needy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Martins Obono is a lawyer, and he's also joining us from our studio in Abuja. Lawyer and activist. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And joining us via Zoom is the Executive Director of Women Advocates Research and Documentation.
The session already.
Oh, okay. Once she's ready, we'll bring her on. But we've got these two people in Abuja. And let me start with Funmi. Funmi, what would you say is responsible for the rise in cases of rape around the nation?
The increasing rate of rape that we have is primarily due to the awareness that people now have on the need to speak up when it happens. I do not think that the incidents, the rape incidents, are new. It has been happening. It's just that people do not come out to speak when it happens because of the stigmatization they are worried they will face in the society. They go to law enforcement, they go to police, they are unable to get justice, they are even embarrassed when they try to report rape incidents. But I think people are beginning to come out, people are beginning to advocate, and they are being listened to. I will not, some people have tried to attribute it to the lockdown, the coronavirus pandemic, and all of that. Gender-based violence has deep-rooted sittings in our society. It's just now that people are beginning to get their voices and speak up. We don't know what may be responsible for the new surge that has had death, the rapists killing their victims and all of that. But for sure, rape is not a new thing in our society. It's just that now people are beginning to speak up more about it.
Coming out to speak about it. What has changed?
The media has been very instrumental to amplifying the voices of rape victims. Social media, traditional media, I think they are beginning to give more support to rape victims. Sometimes people just need to see one person do something and then they will follow suit. Last year, we had high-profile cases. We had Busola Dakolo coming out fearlessly and telling her story. And I think that inspired a lot of people. That inspired a lot of families to want to come out with the stories of their own children, wives, or even daughters. Because previously, before now, a child gets raped, a girl gets raped, and it's even her family that is saying, let's just tone down on the number of people that will get to know about this because we don't want to be embarrassed and all of that. First, stigmatization is beginning to fade away. People are beginning to understand that it is not the fault of the victim. So there is no point stigmatizing. We still have, in our communities, we still have people being stigmatized, but then I think stigmatization has greatly reduced, and this has helped people to come out and share their experiences. And when you've now had these rapists go really violent to the extent of killing people, what's that? You cannot hide it anymore. It has taken a new dimension. It's a new level right now that we face. So you cannot hide it anymore. The people in authority just need to come out and respond to the new wave because it's a pandemic as well. Let me put it that way, of the rape pandemic. We just need to come out. Society needs to come out. Government needs to come out. Organizations need to come out and respond to the new wave of this rape pandemic.
Thank you, Funmi. Thank you. Let me bring in Martin at this point. Martin, do you think that the men are getting more courage to do this because there isn't adequate punishment? Okay, last year, government introduced the sex offenders register, which in other climes is a big thing. You are a registered sex offender, you cannot even get employment. When you move into a neighborhood, the whole neighborhood knows that you have arrived and you are a sex offender. That is in other places. But in Nigeria, rapists seem to get away with it. So it looks like men think it's their right to forcefully have sex with women when they wish.
Okay, so I think basically the problem has to do with the criminal justice system and how the laws surrounding rape and from the point of reporting, investigation, and also prosecution. So I won't really want to talk about what emboldens the men, because that has to do with a lot of individual differences, but I'd rather talk about the system and how it also kind of aids and emboldens people to perpetrate this heinous crime. So my points will be, first of all, what are the laws that are made, that are put in place for people to be able to report rape cases or abuses? Now, if you call women, most women are not bold enough to come out to the police to tell them that they've been raped. So they tend to rely on other mediums. So they can talk to a friend, they can call, some even come on social media to vent and to rant, or to call out their abuser. So the problem is, why do people not feel so comfortable to go to law enforcement as their first point of call, to lay their to nail their accuser? Now, if we are able to resolve that problem, so it first of all has to do with the fact that we still operate a Victorian law in our society, where they tell you, for you to prove rape, you have to go to the hospital, you have to go to the police, tell the police takes you to the hospital, get a medical examination, and do all that. Now, what that automatically does is, a lot of people who have been raped or sexually abused become so traumatized. They get to react in a different form, where they first of all begin to withdraw. They also begin to feel ashamed of themselves. They don't trust anybody. They don't want to talk to anyone. And so when these things happen, the duration for which they ought to have reported to the police, and the time they ought to also have gone to get a medical examination would have elapsed. So automatically that makes that whole process very, very difficult to even prove a rape allegation. All right. So if we now can find a room, or we can find a point where we can agree to say, okay, this process is archaic. So can we begin to consider just testimonies? You know, they tell you if somebody is, if you're even going to be sexually assaulted or abused, you have to show evidence that your clothes were torn. There are a lot of people who abuse women who don't need to rip off their clothes. Even at the point of the Violence Against Act, Section 1 of the Violence Against Act, it says that consent, once consent is withdrawn, you know, it's a continuing act. So if you say at any point, wherever you're having sex with somebody, and the person says, I'm no longer interested, please stop, At that point, you have got to stop. If you continue, it is already rape from that point. So how do we begin to make laws and the point of proving rape to make people have more confidence to say, okay, if I've been raped 2 years ago because I have withdrawn, I have been sorrowful, I have been traumatized and all that, but all this evidence that has been put in place, I no longer have them. How can the police now begin to prove that? Then number two is the level of training. I understand that Nigerian police is very overwhelmed and underfunded. I understand that, and we all know the problems. But we need to begin to get law enforcement officers who are trained to understand these issues, to respond to rape issues. A law enforcement officer that does not understand these issues will not be able to respond to them. So we need to have a special, dedicated kind of arm of the police force, just as they have the criminal investigation department and other departments. So the gender department of the Nigerian police needs to be expanded to various states, various local governments, and various divisional police offices. So that when you have somebody, so this problem begins from the point of police college. How do we train our law enforcement officers to understand and respect the rights of women? How do we begin to educate them about these issues of gender-based violence and sexual violations that go on? So that a woman sees a police officer and does not think that when she tells him her story, he will first laugh at her and ask her, why were you there? Why did you wear these skimpy clothes? You enjoyed it. Even if you've had a sexual encounter with somebody in the past, and you now go again to have a different non-consensual encounter, that does not mean, that means rape, you know. So at every point in time, a police officer should not tell you, or a law enforcement officer should not tell you, oh, but you are girlfriends now, you've had sex with this person before, and that means the second time you consented to it. It's not done like that, because if we begin to talk about that aspect, it will be difficult to also prove rape and also make people come out to get justice for their from the law enforcement and from the system against their abusers. So we need to look at trainings for the law enforcement. We also need to look at the factors that are involved in proving rape. And we need to begin to amend it. So I really don't believe in stiffer sentences. Because the reason I don't believe in stiffer sentences is because at the end of the day, if somebody has committed an offense, and if sexual violence offense, and you say they should.
Martins, I will just have to butt in here to introduce our other guests. We'll get back to you. Abiola Akiode Afolabi is the Executive Director of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center. She's a rights activist as well. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
This matter, I don't want to say this period, it looks as if it's trending over and over again, and it came to the fore after a 22-year-old Uwa Omozoa was raped and killed in Benin City, and then the other young lady, Tina, in Lagos. But there have been some other cases. Now, Alera asked Martins a question earlier, or it wasn't Martins, she asked Fumi the question here, why it seems as if this whole thing came out again to the fore. It's always been there, but somewhat in the background. And Martins was asked, what if stiffer punishment will make any difference, will deter those who are perpetrators? But you have been involved in this conversations for quite a while. What do you think would make the difference?
Well, I think there are a whole lot of issues, and we need to look at this issue of rape holistically. For me, when she was talked about rape during lockdown period. Yes, I would say that from the work that we do, there was an increase, not only for rape, but also for other forms of violence against women. And during the lockdown period, because you are being locked down with an abuser that now does not go to work, has to be with you for 24 hours. So from the data that we're collecting as civil society, we have noticed that there seems to be some form of increase. Now, to go back to the issue of rape, I think that there are a whole lot of things that we need to put into consideration. The first issue is whether we need to whether the government actually see the issues of this violence as a priority issue. And why I'm asking that is that even in terms of putting in resources, to address gender-based violence, the government has actually not done enough. There are a whole lot of things that we can do in terms of investing in prevention. There are also a whole lot of things that we can do in terms of responses. And from what I can see as someone who's on the field, we have really not done much in that regard in terms of prevention. Neither have we done much in terms of addressing gender-based violence. If you look at Lagos, for example, there is only one shelter in the entire Lagos, in Lagos. We don't have shelter. There is no government shelter that responds to issue of food. So there are a whole lot of things. That's why I said we need to look at it holistically. Now, coming back to the survivors of rape, there are so many issues. One is the issue of survivors blaming. Everybody asks you questions. When you get to the police asks, what are you wearing? Where did you go? Why did you go there? And all that kind of thing. And what that helps to do is that it further demobilize the person who really wants to come and report rape. So in terms of reporting rape, we have a whole lot of challenges. We need to invest in training who respond to rape survivors who come across to them. For us that we do this work, there are a whole lot of problems with the police. When the police complain, I saw the PPI were talking about evidence. But before we even get to the level of evidence, when people get to police station, they face very harrowing experiences. There's a case in Kaduna that I had to call in SAN this morning. The people were gang raped, and a young lady went on social media to say that they were trying to collect money, from the family of the person that was gang raped. And the next thing that she has been threatened to be arrested. So there are a whole lot of ways that people are even discouraged to come and report. So in terms of people even getting the issue out there, the government is not helping, whether at the level of the police or at the level of the general responses. So there is also the issue of self-blame. You want to blame yourself, especially because you are not getting the kind of response that you are expected to get, from the community. Why did I do it? Maybe I should have gone there. And of course, what that will do is to reduce your ability to be able to report. So these are some of the issues. Now, in terms of laws, as we speak today, about 12 states have passed the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law. And that law is supposed to address the issue of rape, and it provides for maximum punishment. So my point is that even with the law that we have, the getting that justice, we have not been able to. So it's not about whether the law is strict enough or not. My point is that the road to justice is very rough. People are not even getting justice based on the law that we have. So that's why the question of castration or capital punishment becomes an issue that we need to consider, because even as it is now, people are not getting the desired punishment that is even in the VAP law. How many cases have we been able to go through to the end in the country? So these are some of the issues. So they are very fundamental. That's why I'm thinking that there is a need for us to be very holistic, to look at prevention and also look at responses.
Okay, we'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll look at this matters you've talked about, prevention, responses. How do we handle those who are the issue of stigma, trauma, and then the consequences of this violence against sexual violence and all of that? We'll take that in a moment. To stay with us.
Mr. Hosea Egon is a widowed security man who makes 22,000 naira a month while raising his 2 daughters alone in Pape. In 2017, his world came crashing down when he came back from work and discovered his 2 daughters, who were just 9 and 13 years old at the time, had been raped by his landlord, who till today is still missing.
No, I went to Human Rights Commission, I went to NAPTIP, I went to gender units. As I'm talking to you, nothing. Human Rights Commission, the petition Inspector General of Police, which they transferred the case from Pape to CID office. which they invite me for CID office, they take my statement, take the children's statement. Up to now, the only thing they were telling me, who will sponsor this case? And I didn't have that money.
The impact this tragedy has had on Hosea's family is unimaginable, but he finds the courage to survive through help from civil society organizations such as these ones, who are demanding justice from the police for over 80 women who've been raped across Nigeria since January of 2020.
We are tired!
Cases of gender-based violence in Nigeria are constantly in the news, but convictions are very few.
We have over time discovered that a lot of cases touching on rape and sexual abuses of women fail essentially because the crime scenes are mismanaged. Once you mismanage the crime scene and the key evidence that are essential in establishing the crime and obtaining a successful prosecution of the suspect is lost, the investigation will run into murky waters.
The demand for justice by these protesters is taken to the National Assembly.
Violence Against Persons Prohibitions and the Child Rights Act and the domestication of both. I'm aware that well over about 20-something states are yet to domesticate. So we as a House, as a House, a federal House, are going to take that initiative to the states. I intend to write and communicate with all the speakers of all 36 states for them to be proactive on this particular piece of legislation.
The lockdown affords abusers both opportunity and access to their victims, especially with domestic violence and sexual offenses. It is pertinent to note that to get justice for any gender-based violence, you must preserve the greatest evidence of all, your body. Kayla Nagwa, Channels Television News.
Thank you for staying with us. We're discussing ending domestic and sexual violence, and we have discussing with us Funmi Ajare and Martins Obong in our Abuja studio, and Abiola Akyode Afolabi joined us from Okota in Lagos. Let me come back to you, Martins. When Abiola was talking, she talked about prevention and addressing the matter. But do you think the evidence system, the system of providing evidence for the handling of these cases is a hindrance to dealing with these matters in court?
I believe so. I believe so strongly, because the way the Evidence Act is configured, or rather passed or made, is because it's too cumbersome. You cannot make laws to fit a particular person or to embolden the perpetrators, because to the best of my knowledge, that's what happens. And then without taking into consideration the survivors, because I actually don't like calling them victims because they are survivors. Now, you don't make laws that do not take the survivors' state of mind into consideration. So we have to go back to that law and amend it and begin to make room for post-traumatic stress disorder. We need to make room for people who have gone through trauma, who have gone through withdrawal syndrome, who even have attempted to kill themselves for what it's not their, for what you cannot blame them for, So we need to go back to that law and see how we can amend it and make it open, at least, to accommodate people who are unable to run to the police immediately, or who are unable to run to the hospital to get medical examination. So that has to actually be taken into cognizance as we begin to consider the fact that this is getting too rampant in our society.
Funmi, let me bring you in. It is said that a rape victim lives with that trauma for the rest of their lives. you are in the business of helping out people like this who have suffered this kind of abuse. What exactly would you say to a person who has gone through this to help them heal? How do you help them heal?
Really, it's very difficult to talk to them. Words really cannot help them out of what they face. One thing that helps for sure is for, like Martin said, is for the survivor to see that her perpetrator, the person that perpetrated this violent act against her or him, is being brought to book. Justice is the first thing that that we need to have if a survivor has to heal. People go through our psychologists that talk to some of these victims. They are trained, of course, yes, but they also understand that like he said, post-trauma therapy is very important as it is. As important as it is, the victim will not heal if she does not get justice. Knowing that you've been raped and the person who raped you is roaming around the street and probably even raping more people will not bring you to a place of healing. We have people who have been raped and were not able to come out until 20 years after. Why this? Because every day they wake up and they see the person who raped them on screen. You wake up and then the little girl walks out of the street and she sees the man who owns that shop that has raped her. You have taken away her dignity. You have taken away her peace. Healing is very difficult when justice is not served. And that's why for us, we keep calling for stiffer punishment for perpetrators. Because really, the way I know the other people with me, Biola and Martins, have spoken extensively on the lapses that we have in our justice system. We need to train first responders, people at the gender desk. I understand that the law makes provisions for every police unit to have a gender desk. But it's very shocking when you go to a police station and then you're asking a rape victim if she enjoyed it or not, and all of those other questions. Do you want to ask the little girl that is in diapers? We've had stories, we've had incidences of toddlers, of babies being abused. Do you want to ask these young children, these little children, if they enjoyed it? Do you want to ask them what the color of their diaper was or how short their diaper was? No, I think it's time. Desperate situations call for desperate measures. I think it is time that we have stiffer punishment for rape victims and we have training for first responders. And for the victims, we need more trauma centers. CSO, NGOs, we're doing a lot working with these people. We talking with some of them daily. We even sometimes have to relocate them from the environments where they've been abused to new environments. It's part of the process. But these are very expensive things to do when we know that we could take the easier path. First, put in place stiffer punishments. This will serve as deterrence for those abusers out there. Really, it will.
Abiola, let me read out this tweet by Professor Imonuka Nakena. He talks two different things here. He says, first, the laws on sexual harassment and rape in Nigeria must be strengthened. Sex predatory is criminal in the UK. Rape and sexual offenses carries a severe penalty for convicts, and convicts are registered on sexual offenses register for life, and its penalty is up to 25 years. That's in the United Kingdom and in some other climes that we're aware of. He also says rape and sexual violence depict mental weakness, and the act is akin to a psychomaniac. It's egregious that some sex perverts have gone unpunished because of the law trivialized it as typical of sexual misdemeanor. Abiola, in the quest to prevent the stiff penalties that Fumis talked about, I know Martin said it's not a steep penalty thing that will make a difference. The steep penalties and education, would that make a difference?
Well, education is very important. Now, if we look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the penalty there is life imprisonment. So that's the point that I'm raising about. And I guess the worry about life imprisonment is that someone someday can come and give a pardon, and the person leaves the prison. But life imprisonment is also it's also maximum in a way. So it's for me it's also stiff. But the point is that how many people are getting life imprisonment, and as compared to the 20 years that you talked about with the United Kingdom. So for me, it's the punishment is there, but we don't even get people to get justice to that regard to be able to get the life imprisonment. And how many people even get to that level because of some of the things that we have talked about this morning, some of the issues around evidence and the kind of questions, and the fact that there's a need for a general reorientation of the people, which is why you're talking about education. From the gender unit, from the police gender unit, we see that there's still a lot of they don't have the adequate capacity, to be able to deal with the issue. And that's why I say that if as a country we really want to do this, we must be ready to put in resources. Resources, if you look at countries where they are dealing with this gradually, these are countries where they're ready to put resources to train police, to have like a specialized police setup, which was the intention of the gender unit, that are already trained, that can easily respond to the issue of gender-based violence. That will not be asking you the kind of question, or that will not want to behave like the normal police behavior, where they ask for money for files and things like that. So we need to have that kind of specialized police, and we're also asking for specialized courts. And let me take Lagos, for example. There's been a lot of development in Lagos of recent in addressing issues of rape and other sexual violence. For example, they have the Mirabel Center. So if someone is raped and they come to our office, we would call the Mirabel Center and we ask the person to go to Mirabel Center, where they're going to do some kind of health, physical, they will do some kind of physical assessment and all of that, and they refer them to police. And in that regard, because there's somebody who is also following up, you see the police reacting more, and doing what they are supposed to do in that system. But we don't have that kind of system everywhere. We only have in Lagos. And of course, if you look at Lagos too, Mirabel Center is only situated in Ikeja. Lagos is as big as we have 20 million people. In the last 4 years, Mirabel Center had actually responded to about 5,000 rape cases. So you can imagine, how big this issue is. And that's why I think that the first thing we need to do as a government is to take it as a serious issue. And that's why we're asking for a declaration of state of emergency, where we don't only just speak about state of emergency, where we also speak about the need to put resources and put personnel to be able to address people who can understand, psychologists who can understand the issue of rape, who can understand the issue of sexual violence, that can deal with it. Now, on the issue of education, that's very important. The National Orientation Agency must also bring this as part of their curriculum, part of what they do when they go and discuss the issue of value system, because it also has to do with our value system. The impunity that goes around with rape further make rape like an acceptable thing in our community. So there's a need for a value reorientation. So, and we can start from secondary school, talking to young boys. We start from the home, so everybody. So that's why I said it's a...
Oh dear. Oh, we seem to have lost Abiola there.
We'll definitely get back to her.
Let me bring Funmi back in because of some very worrying statistic that we hear, that in cases of juvenile rape, most of those who actually rape the little girl are family members, and the people who are known to the child, an uncle, a brother, her father, a friend of the family. So how does one deal with this when even a child's parent is ready to rape her, or her brother, or her uncle?
Thank you. I know Abiola just spoke about education. Education, it doesn't start from secondary school. It starts from the moment a child can identify her body parts. It's unfortunate that perpetrators are found even in the families. But like I say, a child, a young girl, a young boy is very comfortable with this family member. Do you expect her to carry her pepper spray or whatever it is that we're calling for? Do you expect her to carry it around even in her own home? It is only when we strengthen prosecution, when we strengthen our justice system, that we can actually bring this national emergency to a halt. If the perpetrator, because the person who is going to be abused, the victim oftentimes does not even expect this person to rape her. She does not expect this person to come molest her, touch her body parts or his body parts. So she's not in any way prepared for it. But the perpetrator can be prepared for it if he or she knows that there is a very stiff punishment awaiting me if I am caught in this act. It will go a long way in solving this crisis that we have in our hands. Why these people are comfortable abusing juveniles especially is because they know that nothing will come out of it, nothing will be done. I saw a very worrisome video of a man, just yesterday somebody sent it to us on social media, actually explaining to some other guys how he abused a 12-year-old in his shop. He's saying it, there was a point where he even made a statement where somebody said, if police, he said, who won't arrest me? And that is the effrontery, that is the boldness they have. Who won't arrest me? Yes, even if they arrest me, if we reach station, we go settle. You know, and all of those things. Abiola asked that we have special units already responding. We have, every station is supposed to have a gender desk. But what we need to do is to make sure that those gender desks are manned by professionals. We have people who have gone to school to study psychology, sociology, and all of that. They can have further training specifically for this, manning this gender desk, manning the response to this situation. It's not something that anybody can handle, because if you are telling somebody who is not even progressive thinking, somebody who does not even grasp, who does not even have an understanding of the problem, to just come and take statements of a person that has been abused, that's what leads to questions like, you enjoy waiting you wear, why you go there, you know, and all of those things. I am still insisting, our position at the Helpline Foundation, based on the cases that we've had to attend to, is that stiffer punishment, if we have to go to the maximum, people have called for castration, there are medical procedures to do this. If we have to demand for that, I think the time that we should do that is now. Because no matter what the victim does, your abuser, knowing fully well that he's going to get away with it and there is nothing that is going to stop him, will continue to abuse people until we have put stiffer measures in place to deter these people. This thing is going to continue to increase every day. Just this morning, somebody sent another report, so I was not even able to really read it and attend to it. But it keeps, you know, it's really disheartening anyway. It keeps increasing. Our justice system must be worked on. We need stiffer punishments. We need stiffer punishments for rapists and abusers.
Martins, the practicality of this, what's the way forward in practical terms?
So the way forward is for us to go back to the National Assembly and amend the Evidence Act and how evidence is admissible in rape issues. That's number one. The number two practical issue would be, I know that the current IG is very passionate about gender and rape issues, and we must commend him for that, but he needs to take take more steps forward in terms of training. And I say training because it's very important. A police officer must understand the gravity of what sexual and gender-based violence is. A police officer must understand the magnitude and the damage that causes in the lives of survivors. So we need to go back to the police college from the point of recruitment to let them know what happens. And if you're walking on the street, and I'm not even going to reduce this to just saying we need to put it on the gender-based desk. We need to train every police officer on how to handle this issue. They have to at least have the basic training on how to handle these issues. Number two is also the point of collecting evidence, as well as even the point of interviewing the complainant or the survivor. How do the police make this person feel comfortable, relaxed enough to say her ordeal? Because what she probably, or him, because there are cases where now men are also being violated.
Martin,
Martin,
permit me to interrupt you here. We'll just take a quick break. We'll come back to tidy up this conversation. We'll also need to look at what role can the family play in all of this, and other institutions like the religious and traditional institutions. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us.
The International Center for Investigative Reporting in December of 2019 quoted the Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Pauline Tallen, as giving the figure of rape cases in Nigeria at 2 million every year. But the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics states that 2,279 cases of rape were reported to the police in 2017. The outcry against the alleged rape and murder of Uwaila Omozuwa is still hot, and now there is a fresh reported case in Niger State. Two sisters are alleged to have been raped by their own father.
He started when he said it was his friend who told him that if he do that, if he sleep with us, he's going to draw us close to himself. When he said the first time, I went to Benin because I don't wanted to come back. When I came back, I thought maybe he has stopped the thing he is trying to exhibit. When he asked at the first time, I accept because he said he was drunk that night.
The suspect has his own side of the story.
I did not do it intentionally. I was drunk that day that I have a misrealized and intercourse with one and then those two.
That will not be all in the same state. Another suspect is in detention for raping his own 85-year-old grandmother.
A lokacin da muka je gidansu.
My friends and I took some alcohol and I slept off. Shortly after, we heard gunshots and people scampered to safety. I ran into the room of my grandmother. She was sleeping, so I went and held her.
He claimed he was doing that purposely to get money because he had no money. And above all, he was drunk. He was under the influence of drugs, and that pushed her into it. But by and large, that is not acceptable.
For some people, indecent dressing is a major factor contributing to rape. But how indecently dressed could an 85-year-old woman be for a 25-year-old man to want to have carnal knowledge of her? From the Niger State Police Command Headquarters in Minna, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Thank you for staying with us. Anybody said, our leaders will never take this issue seriously until the data sheet starts rolling out. Just like the virus pandemic, let everyone understand how serious this issue is. It should also be narrowed down to the grassroots for everyone. Again, Pamela Ugweze says, stiffer punishment alone will not suffice. We need value reorientation. Anyway, Nigeria, media and everyone should be involved in spreading this message. Rape is a violent act and a crime against humanity. Rape here being male against female, female against male, male against male, female against female.
No, that was a disgusting story.
Indeed, indeed.
85-year-old woman?
That he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
No excuse will suffice.
I don't know if...
I mean, for me, that's the kind that should be castrated.
I did say that. I don't know if Abiola is back with us, but for me, let's look at what role can the family the religious institutions, not just the social institutions, what role can they play to prevent this issue?
Okay, thank you. I think we need to go back to the basics. Information, information, and information. Now, when it's time for elections, we have campaign trains in every community, no matter how rural, because you want to get their votes. This is a national emergency and the government needs to declare it as such. Community leaders, families, everybody needs to be involved in this. If we need to go out there the way it is done during elections, the local way, go to the markets, share flyers, tell them if this happens, call this number in your community. If this happens, talk to this person in your community. While doing that, you must also make sure that the person you're asking them to talk to is ready to respond appropriately, is ready to respond and do what is right. I think it's going to be a good place for us to start. The family also have a role to play because we've been asking, did these men who have been raping, did they fall from the sky? No. They were born into families. They were raised in communities. They were raised in homes. The way we raise our children need to change. The conversations we have with our children need to change. We must let these children understand from the cradle that the dignity of another person is very important. While they try to preserve their own dignity, they must preserve the dignity of others. This way they will understand that violating somebody's body by violating somebody's body, you are defiling her dignity. But then if we want to look at it, we must, it's very complicated because you may ask that, what has government done to preserve people's dignities? Because I am looking at I'm just having a mental recollection of some of the pictures I've seen of the children that were abused, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds hawking on the streets, and then they were dragged in Kano and raped by a 50-something-year-old man. If the government had made sure, if community had made sure that those little girls were not out there hawking, we would probably have been able to protect them. We need, like I said, it still boils down to our laws. The Child Rights Act must be, I'm glad that the speaker said he's going to begin to engage once again with speakers of state houses of assemblies. But first, every state needs to domesticate the Child Rights Act. Children need to be children. They cannot be out there trying to fend for their families. We are exposing them to predators. And then conversations that we have with them to educate them will also help them know when somebody, a known family member, is about to abuse them. There is so much that needs to be done.
Let's get Martins to weigh in on this real quick. Prof says university campuses nationwide must set up anti-rape units to sensitize students about respect and decorum for both sexes, and that rape and violence must be abhorred. Most predators started from the campuses. Because nothing happened, they become emboldened as master predators. Martins, in a few seconds.
Because we're winding down now.
Okay, so I totally agree with that particular submission because at the end of the day, we need to begin to teach young people, and that is especially from institutions and schools. That's where you find these people. And we need to begin to teach them the culture of care and respect. So how do you respect a woman? How do you respect her choices? How do you care about a woman? So the question of who then is my neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself. if you violate somebody, would you like someone else to violate you? So the whole idea of having a country and a people that care for one another and protect each other is very, very important. And that is the value system that I expect that our leaders, at both from the local communities to the political leaders, to religious leaders, to parents, to older siblings, need to teach the younger ones, and also discuss it amongst themselves, that we need to care for each other. We need to care about each other. You don't look at the other person just as another person, but you need to look at the other person as your own and begin to respect those people and do things that will not directly hurt and inflict pains or harm on other people. So the idea of teaching the culture of care, needs to be the value of human lives and the values of care as a society. We need to bring that back into our culture and even into our national life, because that's the point where people will begin to respect the values and respect decisions of the opposite sex.
Okay, Biola, we just have enough time to take your parting shot.
Couldn't reconnect.
Oh dear, sorry about that. We couldn't reconnect with Biola, so that's where we just have to weigh anchor for today, as they say. Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting conversation, and we have by no means exhausted all the issues. This conversation continues after this, and it's just for me to thank Funmi Ajare, who's the Chief Executive Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Helpline Foundation for the Needy, who joined us from Abuja, as well as Mr. Martins Obodo, who's a lawyer and rights activist, who also joined us from our studio in Abuja. You all keep up the good work, and I'm sure that in a few years we'll be singing a different song, because this has been brought to the fore, and there are so many cases now that everyone is seeming to pay attention to this.
Just before we go, this came in from Abdul Rashid Lawal. He says, may I suggest we dwell on prevention of rape by reducing the free interactions of males and females, restricting the sale of alcohol and other intoxicants, especially in public. My second point is, how do we prevent false accusations? And he says, thank you, I say no to rape. That is Abdul Rashid Lawal.
Thank you. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do remain with us.
They said I would never amount to something better. Lord, only you are the author of my story. They said I would never amount to something better.
And let's talk a bit of economics here. We have Flutterwave Service join us to talk about their payment option that makes it easier for banks and businesses to process payments in Africa. And they're here to tell us about this. Service joining us is Wendy Akomolafe Kalu, marketing storyteller, Flutterwave. Thank you for joining us, Wendy.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, so let's start off real quick. And when you hear Flutterwave, it sounds as if it's something on serious. I mean, yeah. Fluttering wave. So tell us, what's Flutterwave?
Flutterwave, we're a payments technology company, and we're founded in 2016 by ex-bankers and people within the tech community that realized that Africa's payments landscape is fragmented. Businesses were unable to receive payments from their customers outside of their locales, and also people were unable to send money across Africa. And so that's why Flutterwave exists, is because we want to bridge the gap within Africa. We are a payments technology company that allows individuals and businesses to receive payments from their customers and their friends anywhere in the world.
You say you told us when it started, but how can one access it? This platform?
You can access Flutterwave services and our products by visiting our website. We're an online payment technology company, and it's completely free. So you just need to go on our website, www.flutterwave.com, and then you can get started. So you don't need to pay anything to get started on Flutterwave. You just need to sign up, and then you can start using our products and our services.
but then how effective is this platform? I mean, there are certain people who've done payments, you tell that it reversed or it never arrived. I know someone who did a transfer to someone, until today, over 3 months, the money has not arrived.
So we're very effective in Africa, actually, and also all over the world. Businesses like Uber and Netflix use us to receive payments from their customers in Nigeria. And businesses also are able to use us to receive payments from customers outside of Nigeria. In fact, recently, based on the previous conversation that was happening, our solution was used to facilitate donations for one of the victims recently over the week. With our donations link, people were able to pay from the US, from Canada, from the UK. This is something that we have been able to do because we know that it goes beyond payments. Payments is what enables people to be able to grow their businesses, but also payments are an avenue for people to be able to actually help other people. And so we consider ourselves to be very effective. Obviously, sometimes there is some downtime with technology, but we do our best to ensure that we have 99% uptime. And yeah,
you have the uptime. Okay. Let's say I want to pay Amazon, for instance. How would I go about it if I wanted to use Flutterwave?
If you wanted to pay Amazon, we have a consumer product or a retail product called Barter, and it allows people to create a virtual dollar card to make payments on a platform like Amazon. That is if your bank card is currently not being accepted on Amazon. So you just create your virtual dollar card, you fund the card with the amount that you want to spend on Amazon, and then you can use that to make payments. People also use it to make payments on platforms like Netflix, platforms like Apple Music, any global platform where they accept dollar cards. Because it's powered by Visa, your Flutterwave dollar card will be accepted as well.
You said I will fund the card. With what currency? Naira?
But yes, your local currency, Naira, yes.
Okay. So you will do the conversions and take the adequate amount from my card to make the payment on my behalf.
Yes,
Am I correct?
Yes, the way it works is when you are funding your card, you are able to see 100% transparency. You're able to see how much you will get charged and what that gives you in dollars as well. So that at no point are you're not able to see what is happening. All through it, you're able to see the amount that is available and the amount that you're funding with.
Wow. Okay, now we're in a pandemic period, as some will say is a new normal. But how can Flutterwave help Nigerians with online payment services?
So we noticed that with the pandemic, a lot of businesses' revenue were affected, right? A lot of lockdowns also meant that businesses were not able to receive payments, especially the mom and pop and the physical stores that don't have an online presence. So we created this solution called Flutterwave Store that allows businesses to post their inventory online and to be able to send that link to their customer. It's essentially like an e-commerce platform, but there is no hassle involved. Your payments and your deliveries and your e-commerce platform are all into this singular product. So you don't even need to have any technical know-how to be able to use it. We have a business that has used it recently. They sold over 100 crates of eggs, and their product is basically eggs. They were affected by the pandemic. They were not able to sell to their customers, but obviously with Flutterwave Store, they were able to sell online and then deliver those eggs to their customers with our delivery partners.
Are you not in competition with the online stores in that kind of scenario?
No, the idea is to get online quickly, right? The idea is, so a lot of these platforms, they require you to have some technical know-how, but we didn't want that complicated situation for people that use Flutterwave Store. If you don't have any knowledge of, most of the businesses that were affected by the pandemic, that are being affected by the pandemic, are businesses that don't have an online presence. And so you don't really want to start figuring out how to sell online. What do I need to do? Do I need to create a website? You want to be able to get online really quickly. The idea is the whole idea behind it was that we wanted to make it as simple as possible. So it's not a solution that applies to every single business, but it does help. We've seen a lot of people take up and use Flutterwave Store. We've had over 1,000 businesses use Flutterwave Store, and they have seen a huge growth in their revenue, even though they were affected by the pandemic. We've had someone sell books, and she has sold over 200 books within a week as a result of the fact that she was able to use Flutterwave Store.
Okay, but what's like, is it free? I mean, using the Flutterwave Store, is
Yes.
it free? Or there's a certain charge?
Yes, Flutterwave Store is free. The way we make our money, the way we generate revenue is through transaction charges. So in Nigeria, we charge you a transaction charge, but that transaction charge is capped at 2,000 Naira. But if you are not making any transactions, Flutterwave is completely free for you to use.
The person who is doing the selling.
Yes. So we charge you a transaction charge, the business or the individual that is doing the selling, yes.
Okay.
Okay, Wendy, we will take a short break. When we'll come back, we'll tidy up what's the next step, what's the way forward. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're talking Flutterwave's payment services, and Wendy Akomolafe-Kalu is with us. She's the marketing storyteller and telling us about what they do on Flutterwave. So, Wendy, yes, before we went on that break, we're talking about how you've helped small businesses. Incidentally, we're going to be talking about the revamping Nigeria's economy after we finish speaking with you. And you said small businesses have used your platform and they've increased their sales. Does that mean you're providing them with, in quote, ad hoc websites, or is just a platform for them to put their product and move on?
You can refer to it as like an ad hoc website. It's a simple website. It's just a simple one-page platform or one-page website that businesses can use. It works pretty much the way a website would. So you put it in your social media bio, or you send it to your customer platform to use to communicate to your customers, maybe WhatsApp or Instagram or something. And then people are able to click on the link, add their products and their purchases to cart and check out. So it's pretty much, yes, it's an ad hoc e-commerce website.
Okay, are we expecting any more offerings from Flutterwave?
At the moment, we are focused on growing the businesses that currently use our services and use our products. We are focused on equipping them with as much information as possible so they can survive the pandemic and then also thrive post-pandemic. So we've been hosting a number of webinars. We have a webinar series called Grow My Business with platforms like Google and with Faith Foundation, and we've had guest speakers from all over Africa, kind of educate the businesses that use our platform to know how they can thrive during the pandemic, and then also how they can survive and prepare for post-pandemic, because there is life post-pandemic. This is not going to be how we're going to live forever. So we're focused on ensuring that they are able to survive during the pandemic right now.
Okay, is there any other thing we're missing? So you said your website is flutterwave.com,
www.flutterwave.com.
And in terms of customer care, how good is that?
Our customer care is available via social media and email. If people have any questions or they want to clarify anything, they can send us a direct message on social media. We are at The Flutterwave, or they can send us an email, hi@flutterwavego.com. We are available 24/7 and we're able to respond to people's messages.
Question just came in here from Tony. Tony wants to know if there's a chance that Flutterwave will not be like others who have come to say, hey, we have these services to provide for you, come on board. And then by the time they come on board, the services are sort of like not as effective as they were promised.
No, we have a promise to our customers. We are very customer obsessed. We do all we can at all times to ensure that our customers are satisfied. We're constantly improving. We're always in contact with our customers to ensure that we're providing the service that we promised, but also how can we improve on our services to know that we're meeting their needs. That is a promise that we try to keep as much as possible.
In other words, are you saying it's a 100% money back guarantee to your customers?
I wouldn't say money back, but I would say that customers can rest knowing that we are obsessed with their needs and meeting their needs as much as possible and delivering on the services that we have promised them.
In other words, there will be no need for 100%.
There would be no need for money back because if we're offering our services.
It will not arise.
Sorry?
Because I said that situation will not arise because you are certainly going to deliver 100%.
Exactly.
Wendy Akomolafe Kalu is a marketing storyteller at Flutterwave. Thank you for sharing these moments with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sunrise will be back in a moment. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still talking a little bit of economics, but I had this tweet coming from Alabi Michael, who says, incidences of rape are also witnessed in affluent climes with more stringent legislations. He says it's important to have strict laws and enforcement to curb the rate. Also, educating minors, limiting their interactions with strict monitoring of their movement will help. That's coming from Alabi Michael.
Well, he's got merit. Well, let's move on with Sunrise, and we'll be looking at revamping the economy. SMEs to the rescue. Are they really to the rescue? We've spoken about this a few times during this pandemic, and even though we always say that they are the fuel that really runs the economy, how much support are SMEs getting in this country to help them really perform their role? The crash in global oil prices and the economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic has posed a threat to the economy of Nigeria, which is Africa's largest economy and the biggest producer of crude oil in the region. But the federal government is doing its best. Well,
so it says.
Some people will say its best is not good enough, but it is doing something to rejig the economy. For instance, only the course of this last week, the National Assembly gave the president approval for what some consider a huge loan, a venture into which we shouldn't have gone at this time. But then, what do I know? We've got experts with us in the studio who are going to talk to us more about this and how SMEs can actually come to the rescue of our economy at this time. We have an economist, Mr. Gospel Obele.
Thank you for
Good morning. And we also have a communication strategist, Mr. Ayodele Adio.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you both for coming this morning.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Let's start with that loan. 5.1 billion, we're told, from 2 or 3 different areas. And that is to deal with the effects of the pandemic, the fall in oil prices. And we're looking at how to now fund our budget, the 2020 budget. Now, do you think that this is a good time to be borrowing that kind of money?
Well, across the world, there's a lot of borrowing and stimulus packages at the moment. But for Nigeria, it's quite a different case in a sense because borrowing that kind of money when you don't have the structural things in place, to contain that and then to use those funds for what they should be used for is a major challenge because it just means that you're trying to fetch water in a basket, So, and if you look at the expenditure spread, our deficit is larger, not necessarily because we're doing more on the capital end, but because there's a high recurrent side and there's also a high, cost of governance. So, and then you have institutions who do not have the capacity, to use and deploy these funds strategically, for the reasons why they should be used for. So, yes, borrowing and stimulus packages, we already have that going on around the world now, but because we do not have the structural balancing and there is a long history of fiscal indiscipline, these two particularly puts us in a situation where we may not get the most out of these loans.
But Gospel, in the same breath, we're asking for debt cancellation.
Yeah, I mean, that was also what happened in 2004. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala led that delegation, and then We luckily were able to have 60% of our debts cancelled. Now we are back to where we were and further worse down the line. And that's strictly because of one thing, fiscal indiscipline across board. And this is not an administration issue. It cuts across. So we're not so much of the people who are accountable. We're not so much of people who put funds in the right priorities. We don't invest in what is right for us, looking at it in terms of short, mid, and long term and all that. And then ensuring that there's a rigorous process around improvements and development and the likes. So it's quite pathetic, but it's the situation we find ourselves in.
Our system is such that we're loaded with a lot of small and medium-scale enterprises. But these loans that are being collected by the federal government or at different levels may not necessarily get to them. Even revamping the economy may not necessarily affect them. Or do you think so? Do you think it will? Because there are those who believe that they are actually the main solution to the Nigerian economy.
I mean, it's not a matter of what people believe, it's the reality. You have about 41 million small and medium businesses in Nigeria. They account for 48% of our GDP, and they employ about 84% of the labor in your country. So they are quite a necessary part of the economy of our country. And if you let them sink, you would have your economy in the gutters at the end of the day. The problem, like he rightfully highlighted, which stems from a lot of indiscipline, is the fact that over the years, you have not collected enough data. So the country hardly knows or has an idea of where these businesses are located, what these businesses do, and how they operate. So it's difficult to target your stimulus package to what you do not understand, and what you can't measure, you can't change or you can't fix. So if you look at how the stimulus package operated in America when they injected the first stimulus package, which has resulted into 2.5 million jobs created just last month, the data clearly showed that 1.9 million of those jobs were from food, restaurants, and those kind of businesses generally. So it is driven by data, driven by an understanding of the reality of these small businesses, and then you can provide support in that regard. The problem here is there is really no understanding of the businesses in the country, and we have no data guiding our policy. And here we are. I mean, we've put 50 billion in NISRAL, the microfinance bank, but you have businesses, tons of businesses struggling to access that funds. And therein lies the problem.
Is it not a question of proper accounting and accountability? Because even Guston mentioned that we're not an accounting people. Don't you think that's one of the reasons why they are unable to access these funds? Because the government will tell you that the funds are there for them to access.
Well, I mean, that may play a role, because a large number, because here, I said 41 million small and medium businesses. 90+% of that number are micro businesses, and over 70% of that micro businesses are in the informal sector. They don't pay taxes, their businesses are not registered, they are not properly regulated. So to that extent, it might be difficult for them to access those kinds of funds. But the idea again is, if you live in the country, if you are in government in the country where you realize that a great number of the small businesses in your country are informal, you should know that, and you should know how to target those businesses. And so many smart fintech companies are doing that from your smartphone, you can borrow 20, 50, 30, 100,000 naira by just sending a sort code. And that's how some of these small businesses have operated over time. They've never been to a banking hall. They just send a sort code, and their accounts are credited, and they do business. So it's that kind of knowledge-driven policy that you want from the center of government, where you know where these businesses are, you know how they operate, and then you can support them.
Okay, we'll take a short break. When we'll come back, we'll look at how this, what they call it now, stimulus can get to the SMEs. I mean, some European countries are giving as much as 15,000 euros to small and medium enterprises. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us.
As have been seen since the Presidential Task Force in COVID-19 started, the provisions of most of its guidelines have always allowed state government to apply those as suits their peculiarities. As part of the guidelines to open the economy, and in this case for markets, the Lagos State government announced some measures for compliance. 1. Compulsory wearing of face masks in public places. 2. provision of hand washing facility or the option of hand-based sanitizers. 3, social distancing. And 4, but not the least, healthy handling of food items and goods. So we set out to monitor the level of compliance at some markets in Lagos. The open markets are almost back to business as usual. Food items are in open display, poor hygiene, and handling of items and foods with bare hands. This is one of the reasons why face masks have been recommended. Watch this young man interaction and how he suddenly sneezes into the air with no precautions. To a bit of a more organized and gated environment, the Computer Village, owing to its controlled associations, have ensured some level of compliance. They've talked to their members, but argue it may be difficult to control the sea of heads milling around the market. We can only enforce compliance when people come to our shops, they say.
We advise our business people, our colleagues, to change the style of their workers, maybe shifting. Some of them on shifting basis. They don't come every day because we advise them not to sack anybody.
Save for a reduced number of days of opening, nothing suggests any social distancing on the streets, at the banks, at the markets, and nearly all public places have been thrown into life as it was in the beginning. Again, in the name of nose mask wearing or covering of the nose and the mouth, what we have seen a lot of people do is this. They just put it under their jaw, and you begin to wonder what exactly is it covering, the beards like now I'm doing, or the mouth and the nose. Some even argue just open the entire system, as nothing seemed to have been restrictive with the partial ease down.
If you want to give us 3 days, you give us food day. If you want to give us 5 days, you give us food day. This half day is not helping us at all.
Whatever it takes to really combat the pandemic still remains the superior argument. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Thank you for staying with us. We have Gospel Bele, who's an economist, and Ayodele Adio, a communication strategist. And before we went on that break, Adio, you were talking about the number of SMEs in Nigeria. And I also mentioned that in some climes, like in some European countries, they are given as much as 15,000 euros as a stimulus package to this company. And Alero said something about that, the fact that they pay taxes. I mean, the barber shop got 15,000 euros. Someone sent that video to me. But Gospel, do you think that can happen in our shores if indeed the SMEs are going to help boost our economy?
So I would first of all want to state that SMEs in their element as individual components do not necessarily boost the economy. What you have is a situation where you have a cluster of thriving SMEs, right? So we need a cluster of thriving SMEs to be able to add value to the economy, not individual-based SMEs. So yeah, it can be individual-based SMEs that can literally grow into corporations and the likes, but they must be thriving at a level before they can impact on. Yes, so exactly. So that's the question. So how do we get them thriving? Now, you talked about the 15,000 euros and the likes. If you look at the challenge very well in this climate, to a large extent, it's shared, right? So yes, he mentioned that the government doesn't even have data, they don't even know who these SMEs are and where they are and what they do. And also you have a situation where you have about 60% informal. You know, the economy is largely 60% informal. Then on the other hand, you have a situation where SMEs themselves have a part of the role they play in that challenge, right? So the accounting, the structure, and all of that necessary to access these funds is another challenge. Then you have a third arm, the banks / the institutions who give out these loans or these form of stimulus packages, wherever we want to look at it. We find out that majority of them who sit behind it does not even have a good understanding about how, you know, Nigerian businesses operate or what it means to do business in this climate. So the challenge is shared, and until we begin to deal with them in different components, and then trying to tie them up strategically, and then ensure that a lot of SMEs are being moved into the productive economy mainstream, we may not be able to have that kind of rescue impact on the Nigerian economy.
Ayodele, we say SMEs to the rescue, and I'm just wondering, how can they come to the rescue when probably 30–40% of them have gone under due to the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it's a serious challenge. A lot of businesses have gone under, have folded up. Unfortunately, again, we go back to the very basis, which is the fact that we don't even know what kind of businesses have gone under. We don't know the number of businesses that have gone under. And so it's very difficult, to formulate a policy response.
Are we going to know in time? Any hope of us knowing?
I mean, who knows? The only credible data we can get from this country is the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. And they've been starved of funds. Maybe if they have enough funding, and I would suggest that the private sector should support the funding of the NBS, because the data that they generate is valuable input for their planning and business decision making. So maybe when that happens, we can have an idea of the gravity of this crisis, to know what kinds of businesses have gone down, how many businesses have gone over, how many people have lost their livelihoods, how many people have lost their jobs. Then we can begin to prepare a response to that. At the moment, I think we're just playing guesswork. We're not sure what we're doing. We just assume. Of course, there are certain industries that we know that have been badly hit, which is the hospitality. Hotels can't operate, restaurants can't operate, barbershops, cannot operate. Those small service businesses have been badly hit and they cannot operate. But here's the thing. There is no specific targeted policy on the hospitality business in Nigeria. These people have been shut down for 3 months and very little attention has been given to them. They employ lots of people, same as transport, same as food and beverage. So it's a difficult situation when you are not using data to drive policy making. And let me emphasize this. I see again that every policy has to be crafted, articulated, and implemented by the federal government. There are 36 other federating units and subnational governments. What are they doing? These are the people in their states who have a better understanding of these businesses, who understand the local peculiarities. Where is their own stimulus package? What are they doing to support businesses in their own? Everybody's just going cap in hand, waiting for the federal government to break bread so that they can share.
Yeah, but that's going to come to an end pretty soon. How much is oil today? So what is being shared in the center is dwindling. So are you seeing any kind of positive action from the states regarding being self-sufficient?
If you take out Lagos and a few other states, maybe Port Harcourt, just a few other states, you have so many states that are insolvent. They will not survive without handouts from the federal government. Unfortunately, most of these states have not started making the very difficult decision of diversifying their economy or becoming self-sufficient or becoming independent of the federal government's largesse. And that's the problem that we have. And we allow too much planning to be done in Abuja, whereas we abandon subnational governments where the people actually live. The Minister of Finance, for instance, or the person in charge of economic planning in Abuja does not have the luxury to know what happens in the business community in Pottiscombe, in Yobe. Doesn't have the idea on ground of what happens in Aba Market. These are people that your commissioners of economic planning in those states have a better understanding of those local peculiarities and should form policies that will support these businesses. But that is not happening at the moment. There is this over-dependence on oil such that, here's the funny thing I say every time. 36 commissioners of budget planning go to Abuja every month to hold a meeting, not for economic planning, not for policy alignment, but to collect money and go back home. What a waste of human resources that these bright brains go to Abuja not to strategically plan for economic development, but to collect and go.
But if that be the case, if the states and the federal are not, those who should be thinking and planning, are not planning the policy direction for these small and medium enterprises or the micro enterprises, as the case may be, what's the hope then?
I strongly think that in the meantime, SMEs would need to take the bull by the horn by themselves. But what we have is, you mentioned earlier on that a lot of SMEs have gone under. And it's majorly because of a particular issue, and that's inability to access markets, all right? Inability to understand markets.
Hold on.
So if...
Sorry. Inability to access markets,
to understand
not
and
access funds.
No, first of all, understand and access markets. Now, the Enterprise Development Center released a report on the impact of COVID-19 on SMEs, and we realized 75% of SMEs said that yes, business have gone under, incomes are not coming as usual, but they feel they need funds to move ahead. And that's what the conversation has been. How do we create more stimulus and how do we channel more funds to this market? But if you look at SMEs, I'm an SME too, but to be very objective here, if you look at SMEs, they don't even have a good knowledge about what is going on in the first place. Then to be able to tell exactly from a CEO point of view or a CEO point of view how bad your sector or your business or your market is hit, until you can do that robust business review, all right, about your market, understand where the market currently is at the moment as a result of COVID-19, you may not necessarily be able to articulate what you need, and what resource you may need. You may need a form of human capital resource or financial resource and all that. And so there have been a lot of overemphasis on access to fund. Funding is very important, but funding is a strategic tool, right? When you understand your market enough to know how to apply it. And if you don't understand your market enough to apply it, you can as well get as much funds and then it sinks it down the drain, all right? So I think it has to do with a challenge of understanding markets. A lot of SMEs don't pay attention to that. Private sector organizations who do a lot of SME work in form of CSR, in form of an extension of what they do, hardly deal with the market angle of SMEs. So yes, little talks here and there about structure, but about 90% conversation has been on funding. So how do you fund what you don't understand? And how do you fund what you cannot monitor or evaluate as time progresses or as the global/local economy changes? Very critical.
Some people, some bodies that have funds to give, some banks, for instance, they make the rules for access so stringent that not many of those SMEs will actually qualify.
You mean access to funding?
Yes.
Yes, so I mentioned earlier on that challenge is shared. So if you look at the requirements in quotes, a lot of times those requirements are not built with an understanding of how it is to do business in Nigeria. So a lot of bankers and people who sit behind those funding desks in the commercial banks and the likes don't even understand how to run businesses. So they build the criteria for people who, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So, and then you have businesses who do not have the structure and all that it will take to access this funding. And even if you have the two working, there's a lot of compromise here and there, but at least let's have those two working. We do not have that at the moment, So it's going to take a lot of reworking each component of that value chain to ensure that, and those also state here again that the EDC report stated that a lot of SMEs are hopeful and resilient that their business will survive. But in the times we are in, resilience is not enough. And being hopeful or being passionate is not enough. That must meet with clarity and intelligence as regards what is evolving, how it's evolving, and where does my business model fit in the middle of its dynamics, as it were, and what resources would I need to scale. And let me also state that there are businesses who have the potential of surviving this period that may still fail because they cannot, SMEs in Nigeria have not been taught to do the rigorous work of intelligence gathering.
But some time ago, when banks were told to reserve a certain amount of their profit for SMEs, there was plenty of marketing going on, and some banks actually came and sat here and told us how they were going around trying to get people to access those funds and how they were going to market women in Qatar, for instance, who sold fabrics, and trying to explain to them how they could access these funds. So is there hope that there'll be proper marketing? Because now that SMEs have gone under, there'll be many SMEs who will want to come back into business, who will be looking for funding. So do you see banks going on aggressive marketing to try and get these SMEs to access some of these funds?
The experience has been when they go out of those marketing so that you can open accounts, service those accounts for 6 months, and they put you ladder tall criteria for you to access funds, and you end up crying at the end of the day, which you don't get. So the entire business model.
Banks, please take note, please listen and learn.
I mean, that's the reality on ground. If you've done business in Nigeria, you will know that. The entire business model is not built on lending. Most of their profits do not come from that. In fact, there is too much risk for banks to lend to entrepreneurs. When it's even
in parentheses, did you hear about 3-4 days ago that banks made 2.2 billion from bank charges, no, account maintenance fees.
Exactly. So, so they and there's lower risk in investing in government securities than there are in borrowing SMEs. So even though the CBN has taken a very, very important decision to lower the MPR rates, which is the money policy rate, to 12.5%, which is essentially supposed to allow banks to borrow more to the SMEs, you are not likely to see the graph go up in terms of borrowing to SMEs because fundamentally,
Lending.
yes, you're not going to
Lending.
you're not going to see them lend more monies out because these banks are not their internal mechanism is not designed to lend monies to small businesses. So what needs to happen, hopefully, is that we're out of time. Oh.
We're out of time, but just round up.
So I think what needs to happen is to follow the intelligence of these fintech companies. And I keep hammering on that because somehow they understand the market better than banks that have operated here for decades. They know who to borrow to, they know how to borrow to, and they lower the barriers of entry, for these things to happen. So I think if you want to form a policy right from at a strategic level from the federal government, coordinated with state governments, is to find ways at which monies can get to these small businesses without having to go through these bureaucratic bottlenecks that they usually go through, where from the first paper that is dropped in front of you, when you see the 20 sheets, you don't even know where to start filling these forms from. And that way we can get more monies in the hands of SMEs and hopefully stimulate the economy.
We run out of time. We don't even have time to take your final word on this. I'm very, very sorry. We've been speaking with Gospel Obele, who's an economist, and Ayodele Adio, a communication strategist. Thank you for coming to share your thoughts with us about revamping the economy, which is something that this country badly needs because there's so many people who are out of employment right now because so many of these SMEs have gone under. Thank you very much. Sunrise will be right back in a moment with the home stretch.
Theo J.
It all happened again, I'm sorry. Give me that, I'm really sorry.
She's looking funny here.
Maybe patches or something.
Darling, I'm thirsty. Can you get me a drink, please?
Oh, okay.
Orange as usual.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, you found me and for maybe shame. And you described my mind, but you never ever touched my soul. For those who've been there before.
Carol, where did you spring from? Where have you been?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tilda. Hey, Carol, how you doing? Tilda, I'm very sorry, okay? I thought you liked me.
So now what do you think? Think I'm telling the truth?
I think I'm the most foolish, unreliable, and untrustworthy friend you have.
Come on, don't say that, right? I guess you didn't understand. Maybe you misjudged me or something. Right? You're still my best friend.
Hey, girls. I'm taller now.
Okay, thank you for staying with us. I'm sure looking through that clip, you'll be wondering who exactly is the artist of the week. Well, she's been in the industry for quite a while. She's gone from acting into scripting into directing. She's a graduate of English and Literary Studies from the University of Nigeria, University of Calabar. She's also a runner-up of the Most Beautiful Girl in Nigeria in 2002. And I'm going to attempt by speaking to her in the language. I'm sure she caught a few words from there when she was coding that area. So her name is Stephanie Linus. Stephanie, monsieur. I got you there.
Abadia, I know Abadia, yes.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank
It's
you.
good to have you here. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time,
Yeah.
you know, so, but it's good to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us, how has it been? The journey, that clip we had, we deliberately went for a very old clip so that, I mean, to have an idea of the journey you've gone through, the journey of your acting career and all of that. How has it been?
It's been wonderful, I think. You know, seeing that, I can't actually remember the movie. So when I saw it, I'm like, what clip is that? I can't actually remember the movie that was. But it's been quite interesting. And the industry, the great thing is that the industry has really grown. And, you know, I'm also very excited that we're all part of it. And, you know, it's been quite an interesting journey so far.
Okay, so you discovered your acting passion when you were a teenager.
Yes, when I was a little small. Yeah.
And so why do you sort of like downplayed acting and gone into the back end, directing more and writing more?
No, there's not. I've done over more than 100 movies, so it's not downplaying. No, I haven't downplayed it because even in some of the movies I produce, I also feature in it. So it's not downplaying. It's more like I happened to do a film that, you know, I wanted to explore all aspects of the film. I looked to see, and there's some of the projects that, you know, they've given me, some I like, some I just felt, you know, I wanted something different at this time. So it's not like I'm still very much active. I'm still very much, I love acting, like my first love. And it comes so easy. Either that is like easier, you know? So I'm still acting, but sometimes you also want to be versatile. You also want to try new things. And you also, maybe if you feel there's certain things that you want to talk about. And going behind the scene also gives you the power and resources sort of like to be able to tell those kind of stories that you want to see out there.
If acting was your first love,
It
you
is.
started acting when you were little.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just go ahead and study acting? Why did you go and study something else? And then come back to
I
acting?
think they kind of like, well, I'm sure you know the Nigerian system. When you're trying to get into the university and then you check your time and the course, say, okay, this one, maybe the one you were going for and that's the one they gave you, and you say, okay, let's read it. But I think they all sort of like tied together, you know, English and literary studies. They all sort of like, because it's literature, it's acts and everything, they all sort of like tied together.
Well, why not theater arts?
Yeah, well, but later on also, I still also went abroad and also did my study in acting and directing and producing. I still had time to do all of that at the same time. But at the end of the day, it's not even about study, because some people might study it and they might still not be successful in what they're doing. So the main thing is, do you have the talent for it? First of all, especially in the arts, you know, when it's something that is very artistic, yeah, the talent has to really come naturally for you, because it's something that is uniquely you, that you present to the world. Even the way we act, they can give us the same word, the way you're going to interpret it. No matter even if you went to the same school, the way you're going to interpret it is going to be totally different from the way I'm going to interpret it. So that's why art is a little bit tricky, because it's totally the individual and what the individual brings to it.
Right you are. Right you are.
Okay, so your first movie, Compromise,
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
and then Waterloo, 1997. I'm sure you don't even remember.
Yeah, secondary school. Yeah, when I was in
You're
secondary
secondary school. Then later in 2002, you went into the beauty pageant and all of that.
everything,
Then
yeah.
from then on, it's been like rising.
Yeah.
Tell us, what was your favorite, if you do remember, your favorite role and which movie that was?
Ooh. Wow, it's funny. I've had a lot.
The one you say number one. On a
No,
scale of
I've
one-
really had, there's been so many. I can't even choose one. There's one, I love my role in Eye of the Gods. There's a movie I did, Eye of the Gods. I was this wicked princess. Eye of the Gods. I did More Than a Woman, was like action film. I did Emotional Crack. That's also the one called Enslaved, where I was like mentally deranged or something. So there's been a lot of, even Dry playing a doctor. So there's been a lot of great roles, really, and there's still more that I'm hoping to do. So I really can't choose, but I think I've done some really interesting roles that I've loved over the years.
Now, you are an actress, a director, a producer. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Good. Now, which of these roles do you sit in and you're most comfortable in?
Oh, definitely acting. I love acting. Acting is like number one. I love singing as well, but you know, of course,
singing.
yeah, because the acting is so. It's what I've been doing for years. Is everything you take here. You just come do your thing and you go. So, but for directing, it's a lot of work because you're like in every scene, you're seeing the whole picture. I just come do my bit and I get off, but you're going to be there for other people. And it's same as producing, running around trying to find the money and, put everything together. So it's a lot of work, but I think I like acting more. But, I find out that I can actually be good at the other ones. I also explore them. I'm actually, I think I'm a pretty good director and also a producer.
Talking about being a pretty good director, your movie, I think that was the first one you did, Dry?
No, I did Through the Glass. Through the Glass, yes, was the first movie that sort of like opened the doors for Nigerian films being shown in the cinema. It was actually the first movie that broke the box office and made a lot of people, Nigerians, to feel more comfortable to go to the cinema to watch Nigerian movies. That's what Through the Glass did. That was in 2009. So after that, that was when I did Dry.
2014.
Yeah.
So how was Through the Glass? How did you feel when you saw it in the cinema?
I felt really, it was really great because at a point, I think I was in film school and word got out that I was studying directing. And in my head, I said, I better not come back to Nigeria. I said, I studied directing. I have nothing to show for it. So that's when I decided to do the little film. And I showed it in LA, and there was a lot of people who came in, watched it, liked it. And, it became a thing. So before I even came to Nigeria, people have heard about the film. And then when I showed it, it was interesting and people liked it. And so that's like me coming out from film school and trying to, put the thing that I studied to work. So that's that. And also the impact that it had on the industry was also really great, opening that doors, I can actually go to the cinema and watch Nigerian films. And producers saw that I can actually make money going to the cinema. And he also encouraged some of my colleagues to even go behind the scene. A lot of people who were actors who decided to go into producing, directing, like, Stephanie did it. That means me too, I can also go and do it. So he also encouraged, which is a good thing. He also, show also the female especially to show that, you can actually go behind the scene and get hold of this whole creative process. And that encouraged a lot of people to do that. And before I came in with Dry. Yeah.
And what made you go for that storyline, Dry?
I think the story found me in the sense of I was I think, if I'm correct, like 2002 at the university, a friend of mine came from UniJOS, and then she came from the north and she was telling me stories about young girls who were married off at early age and they become incontinent. So to me, it was like so strange hearing that kind of story. I'm like, look at us, we're rocking in Calabar, we're going to school, even though people are saying, oh, you're going to marry, but you have the choice to decide when you want to marry. And we're living in the same country, but some other people don't have this kind of choice. I think that really stuck in my head, in my brain, like, wow, what do I need to do? And the more I researched about it, the more I felt there was, a lot that I can do about it. I even volunteered to different organizations, trying to find out information about it. And I did. So I think the story found me. And when it was time to really tell it, I took the opportunity to tell it.
That would allow pull me into this other bit of conversation that's been going on a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, recently, issues of sexual violence, rape, and all of that. How does that make you feel, seeing that you told something similar? Yes, that's underage marriage, but I mean, juveniles are still being molested here and there.
It's really sad. It's such a horrible and sad situation, and that's where we as a people really need to look inward and really be truthful to ourselves. What are we doing to our young girls? What are we doing in our society? What are the laws that we're not allowing to be enforced, So I think we just allow things happen to us, and we're not very outspoken about the things that are happening in our society. I think people are getting to that point that are getting tired, and I know with this whole COVID scaring people, I think nothing else can actually scare you because, something come up, you can't touch it, and it's, sort of like killing everybody. And I think people are getting to the point that, I think I need to speak my truth. So I think we need to also create an environment where it's comfortable for the woman to speak her truth and not be shamed about it. So we're trying to figure out how to demystify that whole shame tag that they give to a lot of people that make them feel uncomfortable not to come forward. And we also need to look at the system to figure out how do we fix the system. Do you understand? To make sure the system is working. But most importantly, we need to create a lot of awareness. Awareness because of the next victim. What happens to the next victim? what would she do if she finds herself in that situation? Who would she call? You know, because I had a young girl called me, that's a guy that was living in her compound, say, you, this girl, I'm going to rape you. I'm like, at that point, I just, like, what do I tell this girl? Find the nearest police station and make, and report and all of that. So you have a lot of this happening in a society that if we really don't take time, it's really going to escalate. And where we're going, well, I don't know if we're going to recover from it, but I think we should stand against it, both the men and the women, and be watchful and be accountable for, with the things that are happening.
Are we expecting a movie that will portray that soon?
Well,
talking about it with such passion.
No, well, there's a lot that I'm doing. Like with the COVID thing we're doing, there's a campaign I'm running now, which is My Hygiene First, My New Habits that I'm running right now. I'm working on a movie. I'm working on a human trafficking movie to address that issue, and a couple of other films that I'm working, behind the scene. Everybody just waiting.
But none about rape yet.
No, we've already, like I said, in the movie Dry, I also tackled that. Even though the young girl was married to the man, but he took her against her will. She didn't understand the concept of,
because
dad.
she was too young.
She was too young. So that was also addressed in that light in the film that I did. So there's a whole lot of other abuses happening that, we want to shed more light to. But right now we're working on the Hygiene First campaign, My New Habits, which I feel that we as a people, we need to look inwards. COVID has happened. Everybody's in a frenzy, try to wash their hands. But are we hygienic people? There's certain things that we do in our society that I feel that we need to stop. And it's our own responsibility. Okay, she's going to ask.
No.
Yeah.
I was going to say that you just hold your horses.
Okay.
We'll go on a quick break. We'll come back to continue.
Thank you.
Please stay with us.
Thank you.
Grandma Mary, can you remember anything about my daddy?
Well, I think you should ask your mother about him.
If he didn't want me, then I want to hate him.
No.
I'm old enough to know what happened to my father. Someone help me! Pastor Palmer!
What is this?
Pastor Palmer gave me that.
I don't want you reading it. It's full of lies.
Trouble just seems to follow.
Get out of here!
You're just trouble.
You're my sister. Ain't you supposed to be nice to me?
Don't judge the child or the mother.
Send somebody to tell his wife this does not look good. You ever think maybe you're having money is your punishment?
Always listen to that still small voice inside you. I have no answers. I have no way out.
You're not responsible for your husband's beliefs.
You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
The worse it is for her, the better it is for me.
I cannot be near him.
Oh my God. I know you're alive.
Well, do you know where her father is? I never loved you.
Give me that gun or you're a dead man.
I didn't want to be like him.
He's gonna need some help.
Please, trust me.
Promise me that you'll come back real soon.
Ma, I don't want to marry now.
Halima, you are too young to understand. You are young and this is the right time.
I am so honored to be receiving this award.
Why do you come here every Thursday?
I guess I'm supposed to be talking to a shrink.
Is there something you need to talk to me about?
It's almost as if she's trying to make up for something. Don't you want to be part of the team?
I'm already part of the team.
I want to go back there.
And thanks for coming to help in our small hospital.
I wish I could die.
We can't save every life.
We can't keep losing this women.
Doctor, I can't take it anymore!
Mom, you're a medical doctor. Your duty is to save lives.
But I did not sign a vow of poverty.
Clean her up before the whole house starts smelling.
Our whole household is infected with disease, Omegida.
We need new equipment. A lot of people are dying every day here in this hospital.
What issues could be more pressing than this lunatic doctor who will do anything to paint this country back?
Go back to your father. Go and let your family share in this embarrassment. Think about that. Go.
they can't just do that. Why are they standing the ground?
Halima! No! After you have killed your parents, no!
Thank you. We still have Stephanie Linus here. The older generation might remember Stephanie Okereke. Well, Stephanie Linus is here. Yeah, Stephanie, you before we went on that break, we were talking about some of the work you've done.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the new campaign that we're pursuing now, which is My Hygiene First, Hygiene First, My New Habits, which is we looking inwards as a people, what can we do to better ourselves and our environment? You know, sometimes a lot of people feel that we are helpless. I say, no, we're not helpless. You know, some of those things, we go around, we look at things, places are not hygienic, things, people are just, you know, not conscious about their hygienes. And, you know, I saw this viral video of the guy washing the fruits inside the gutter. So I was like, okay, there's a major problem here, which is people are not conscious about their hygiene. And if they're not conscious, they will definitely not care about you. They will definitely not care about the environment. So how do we elevate their minds and, you know, for them to say, no, there's certain things that is within your own power that you can do to help your environment.
Some people say if you don't value yourself, you will
yes,
not value any
you know,
other person.
yes, and all of that. So how do we create, and, you know, sometimes you want to be angry, but you also have to, you know, sort of like calm down and figure out that a lot of people really do not know. So how do we bring it to their consciousness for them to see the benefits, why they should do? The environment you wish you had also starts with you. You driving on the car, throwing the trash out of the car. Well, it's not government this time. It's you as an individual who made that conscious effort to throw it out of the car. Make the same conscious effort to put it inside your car and trash it properly. So these are some of the campaigns that we're trying to put out there to create a lot of awareness where it's going to take you like really drive you really home to educate people about hygiene.
What about the campaign against sexual violence and molestation? The movie Dry, you showcased a bit of that. And I know Alera has asked you if you're going to do a movie about rape. But the question of sexual violence in the entertainment industry is also there.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people have complained about that. You know, I mean, there's even some stories out there that, but I think the good thing is people are now talking. You know, back in the days when you did the film, people are not feeling comfortable to actually come forward to talk about it, which shows progress. And it's not only in the entertainment industry, because I beg to differ, because you find sexual harassment in all sector, you know, in all sphere of life. You know, you find in education, politics, all kinds of institutions, banking and all of that. But, you know, I think people are beginning to realize, I think the men are now trying to listen to the women to figure out the kind of hurts that they inflicted on both the men and the women as well. Although we know, of course, more women are more vulnerable at this time. So I think there's a lot of giving that environment for women to come out and speak their truth. And also for us to look inward and say, so what are the measures that we need to take as an industry, do you understand, to curb this? Do you understand? So people need to, if it's something that you need to sign, that if you're getting a job, make sure you're not soliciting for someone to give you their bodies or anything. So there's certain measures that are being put in place to make sure that that happens.
We're running out of time. So in your life journey, you've gone from acting to directing and all of that. In the course of that, you got married, you have a family. Yeah. Beautiful. I understand he's watching from home.
Well, I don't know yet.
You also had an accident that was quite devastating, but thank God you came out well. So if you were going to talk to anybody out there, what would you say? My life's lessons. This is Stephanie Linus, My Life Lessons.
Oh, wow. Do you just put it all in one? But you just basically, life brings different things, throw different things at you. It's just for you to know that things are going to happen, but how you handle it and how you come out of it also matters, you know. So you come out of it by learning some lessons from it and making sure it doesn't happen in the future. And I think it's just you believing in God also and allowing God to direct your paths in life, also kind of like help. And at the end of the day, just being a decent human being and showing love. I love love so much. So I do everything from the point of love in my life. So the life lessons: believe in yourself, work hard, stay focused, be a decent human being, and know that your life isn't only just for you, but also for other people who are around you. You're supposed to be a blessing to other people around you and also to your country and, you know, to your environment and stuff like that.
She has been watching us too much.
Well said.
You know that thing we always say, be the best
best
of
that
you.
you can be.
Be the best that you can be. Okay,
I love your culture. I love your name.
No, but love conquers all things.
Yeah.
And really, when you have love, if our leaders have more love in their hearts, we won't be having so much complaining in the world, because you treat your citizens, you treat them, you think about how it's going to affect you as a person, and you do the same thing to the other person.
Thank you so much. We've had Stephanie Linus, an award-winning actor, filmmaker, and mother, friend, a lover, and a global citizen. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you, Stephanie.
Thanks.
Bye. Well, that is how we wrap it up for this day on Sunrise. We hope to see you, well, we hope that you will see us next week with a fresh edition. I'm Alera Edu, wishing you a very happy weekend indeed.
And I'm Neo Taigwe. As Stephanie has already said, be the best you can be. Live your life not just for you, but for everyone around you. Have yourself a beautiful rest of the day. God bless you.